Tino, come here. What's the matter with you? I think your brain is going soft from all that comedy you're playing with that young girl. Never tell anybody outside the family what you're thinking again. Go on.
Welcome to the big show.
He could go all the way. Oh, America! Are you serious? It is showtime, baby. Here we go. Red Jam Slam Band is awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! Get ready to rumble!
Pump up the jam, yo, pump it up, yo, pump it. Y'all ready for this?
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. Move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. Give it up, go.
Welcome to the big show.
Let me say,
Simply
wait. About to say, pump up the jam, pump it up while your feet are stumping and the jam is pumping. Look ahead, the crowd is jumping. Pump it up a little more, get the party going on the dance floor. See, 'cause that's where the party's at, and you find out if you do that. I want a place to stay. Get your booty on the floor tonight, make my day. I want a place to stay. Get your booty on the floor tonight, make my day. Pump up the jam, pump up the jam, pump up the jam, pump up the jam, pump it up, up.
Finds it to 25, breaks a couple of tackles. Headlock, go. He could go all the way.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cold War Radio, live on our home base, WAAR. We are America Radio, your number one source for streaming political and government talk anywhere. Also streaming on weareamericaradio.com/live. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the bunker in my Smith & Wesson studio in the leftist city of Pittsburgh. And please follow me on Spreaker, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio, 2 A's in war. You can catch the show on Blueberry via Roku. You can catch it on YouTube after the fact. Cold War Radio is an iHeartRadio program, and the Cold War Radio app is available at your app store, whether you have an Android or iPhone. So get that for free. You can get in the chat room. Chat room's the place to be, ladies and gentlemen. I can already look at the chat room and tell they know what time it is, so I don't have to worry about them. The email is scrtv@live.com. The Cold War Radio patron hotline is 412-567-2449. We hope to see that lit up tonight so you can assist me as I am in the studio alone, at least with a microphone. I know I'm not alone. The chat room is up on Spreaker. Go to steelcityresistance.blogspot.com, my headquarters, and you can catch any pertinent links to the chat room. You can catch the show notes links. This is Cold War Radio 466 if you're interested in the backstory, and thanks to Rocky for posting that in the chat room. If you can help, hit the donate button, but even more importantly, on the right-hand column of the website is a button to become a Cold War Radio patron. And what that is you pledge what you feel the programming 4 nights a week is worth to you a month, and you can stop at any time or decrease it or increase it or whatever. If you need to use standard U.S. postal system or from another country, Hutch Bailey Jr. at P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15226. Now, I'd like to get into this right away because it kind of threw me a little curveball. It broke at 5:30. Everybody's talking about it. I have a little bit of a different angle on it. I want to pass to you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Incidentally, I got some messages, emails, Facebook messages of some people, some listeners who say, "Hey, I don't call because I don't really know enough." And listen, man, there's no such thing as a dumb question. If you call up here, I'm not going to belittle you unless you make me. But that's not what I'm about. Don't be afraid to call in. If you have a question, there's probably other people in the audience that also have that question. Or if you have a point or a point of view or a take on something, especially on Tuesday nights, is when I want to hear from you. Because, again, I said I don't have a co-host Tuesday night by design. And the more calls we get, the shorter, or maybe the elimination of the break in the middle of the show. So just keep that in mind, 412-567-2449, because I'm about ready to give you my opinion on something. We have this New York Times story. Incidentally, the timing of it right before the president goes overseas reminds me of The Godfather, along with other things. What happened, the New York Times broke a story that apparently FBI Director Comey didn't feel that it was necessary during the election or during, all the different times he came out with information at hearings and press conferences. He didn't feel it was necessary to say that the President of the United States asked him to stop the Flynn investigation. Or he didn't even say that. He said, "I would hope that you could find a way to not do this." That's what was said in the New York Times. But Comey never said that to anybody. Comey didn't think it was important, which translates into it never happened. And what happened, you have this breaking today, and the people in Washington are in a frenzy. They just cannot wait to find something to bring this to the level of Watergate. Now, they're never going to find anything like that, but that doesn't matter. They're going to try to whip up enough foam so that his trip overseas is overshadowed by this. He's going to go overseas, and these morons are going to ask him about this non-story. Now, what I would do, if I was the current FBI director, I would drag Comey in for a lie detector. I would make him tell me right now, did this happen or not? I would not let it drag out any longer. He would come in tonight. And we would do what we had to do to find out. This has gone on far enough. And the New York Times and the Washington Post before it, owned by Bezos, by the way, who Donald Trump has said that he might be breaking some antitrust laws. And now maybe Bezos, who bought the Washington Post for $1, or did he buy Newsweek for $1? Anyway, he bought the Washington Post. And now he's using it for political reasons, they're saying, possibly. But let's get back to the New York Times, because this is a BS story. I mean, this is something that if this happened to Comey, and Comey didn't bring it forward, I mean, he should have resigned over this. Or he should have brought it out, and he never said a word. And now the president is getting ready to go overseas, and this is the part that bothers me. This is the part that has me worried, ladies and gentlemen. I watched Fox News tonight, a half hour after this story broke, and Brett Baier and several other correspondents, Washington White House correspondents, said that no Republicans would talk to them. None. Where is Speaker Ryan? Where are you, Speaker Ryan? You are number 3 in line to my president. Where in the hell are you? This is starting to look Machiavellian. Nothing better happened to President Trump overseas. I'm telling you, these Republicans, we've got to do something about these people. We have to do something regardless what happens with President Trump. Now, I have full confidence that President Trump can combat this. He's got to clean house, though. He's got to get in a war footing. He's got to realize that the enemies are within. Somebody had to leak that story. Unless, and there's a possibility of this, unless this was leaked by him. I mean, that's a deep game, but you never know what's going to happen. I'm telling you. But this Republican Party, for these leaders of this party to not come out defending him, tells you they're complicit. They all want him to fail. They're under orders. When you have no Republicans willing to get in front of the cameras of Fox News, they're under orders to not be there. I'm telling you, this is getting conspiratorial. And I'm getting pissed off. And you better be too. Because these stories have no substance. What do they all say again? We need a special prosecutor. Is this the crime? Where's Comey? Let him come out and accuse him. I'm tired of this innuendo. All right, now we'll come down from that, 412-567-2449, and we'll talk about Kimberly Guilfoyle, one of the most beautiful women on Fox, and brilliant, former First Lady of San Francisco, says that she's talking with the Trump administration about a press secretary job. Let's listen to a clip on this and come back on the other end of it.
Have plans to replace White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, according to the New York Times. The Times reports Trump has mentioned Fox News host Kimberly Guilfoyle as a possibility for the role. Half a dozen West Wing officials also reportedly said the president is dissatisfied with several top members of his staff, including Reince Priebus and Communications Director Michael Dubke, and could shake things up. According to Politico, Guilfoyle was an original contender for the role late last year and had multiple meetings at Trump Tower regarding the position. These potential changes come on the heels of President Trump firing FBI Director James Comey.
So I don't know how she'd do. She might do all right. It's a combative job by nature, unless you're a Democrat, that is. I mean, have you noticed the difference between the journalistic style of the press between the Obama administration and the Trump administration? It's marked. It's something that I'd be embarrassed to be a corporate journalist right now. I mean, it's just so obviously, so blatant. They're bound to lose money. Just like the University of Missouri, or what do they call it, Mizzou, they're hemorrhaging more students and they're cutting jobs because of the Black Lives Matter BS that happened last year. And that's excellent to see that. It shows you that the free market works. You can be stupid and leftist as long as you want, but nobody's buying it. And that happened there. I would never send my kids to a school like that. You know, they're just they caved to everything. The students are in charge. You know, that's crazy. It's like the University of California at Santa Cruz, with black student groups taking over buildings. I'd tear gas them. Unbelievable. And not because they're black. Anybody that took over my property would get tear gassed. Now, some good news for people that are a little leery of the rhinos and the establishment in Washington. Texas Senator John Cornyn drops out of the running for FBI chief, as did Trey Gowdy. Two good things. Two good things, ladies and gentlemen. Neither one of those people is qualified to be the director of the FBI, no matter how much you love them. SCRTV@live.com if you want to send hate mail. It's just a fact. The person that needs to be the head of the FBI needs to be a current FBI agent or a current law enforcement agent at a high level. Somebody who is a cop. We don't need a politician or a lawyer to be in charge of the FBI. The lawyers are in the Department of Justice. You've seen the show Law and Order. You got law, which is law enforcement. Then you got order, or law and order, whatever. You got one side's law enforcement, the other side's lawyers. We don't need lawyers in the law enforcement side. Just my opinion, but it's the right one. Ladies and gentlemen, another story that is out there, and I'm not real sure about the facts or the, cutting edge of this story about the Seth Rich WikiLeaks thing. I don't think that anything new was really brought up. And, we're talking about emails, and the cops have the laptop. Either the D.C. police or the FBI has the laptop. So how could anything new really be out there? But anyway, it's a good thing that it's resurfacing. The big story is the silence from the establishment media over the Seth Rich WikiLeaks report from Breitbart and BenQ. Left-wing media outlets, including the New York Times and CNN, have so far failed to cover a Fox News report revealing that murdered DNC staffer Seth Rich had been in contact with WikiLeaks. On Tuesday morning, Fox News reported that Rich, who was murdered in Washington, D.C. last July, sent 44,000 emails and 17,000 attachments to deceased investigative reporter Gavin McFadden, a man with close links to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. All these people end up dead. My investigation up to this point shows there was some degree of email exchange between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks, an investigative source told Fox. I do believe that the answers to who murdered Seth Rich sits on his computer on a shelf at the D.C. police or FBI headquarters. Okay, we knew that already. And really we knew that he was in contact with WikiLeaks, at least an 80% solution, when Assange pretty much told us that. Without naming names, but it wasn't too hard to put the line in between the two dots. On July 22nd last year, the WikiLeaks published emails implicating the DNC in attempting to derail Bernie Sanders' campaign for the Democrat presidential nomination. If proven, the report has the potential to be one of the biggest cover-ups in American political history, dispelling the widespread claim that the Russians were behind the hacks on the DNC. Look for more bodies, ladies and gentlemen, because this blows up everything. And it makes you wonder, why isn't the FBI more aggressive? Why don't they push their brethren at the D.C. Police Department a little harder? This is something that every time something like this happens, more and more credibility gets taken from the FBI. And I read an article the other day about a man whose father, recently deceased, was an FBI agent since the 20s. And maybe it was a little later than that, but no, it wasn't. He was an FBI agent from like 1917 up until World War II, when he left to fight the war. But his letter, there was a letter from him when he was resigning his commission or whatever to J. Edgar Hoover, and 75% of that letter was saying how he acted with integrity and honor and never did anything to embarrass the FBI or to embarrass the country or to embarrass the FBI director. My, how far we've come. Now you've got me, a law enforcement guy, a law enforcement supporter. I'm not law enforcement, but I support law enforcement, and especially the FBI. And I don't believe a damn thing that comes out of the FBI anymore. I think they're part of the Democrat Party. That's just me. When you see Hillary Clinton walking away, when you see Eric Holder and you've got DEA agents murdered by weapons the Democrat Party gave them, there's no FBI. When you see the widespread voter fraud, when you see Allegheny County, where I live, that had nothing but Trump signs, except in the very concentrated leftist areas of the city, and the county is much bigger, and there was no Trump signs outside the city limit, no Hillary signs outside the city limits. and the rallies in Moon Township were capacity filled, and you tell me that slug won by 100,000 votes in this county? That's not true. That's not possible. That didn't happen. Donald Trump won the popular vote. There's no question. And I want to see people go to prison that are committing this voter fraud. So this guy's putting it out, and they kill him. I mean, and there's no reporting in the media. That's the story there. We'll see how that develops. It's good to keep it at least surfaced with us, if not with the people that watch 15 minutes of news a week, and then wonder why they don't know anything. Let's go to Front Page Magazine, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to shift this a little bit to jihad and dhimmis and dhimmitude. I read this and I thought it was a figure of speech. How wrong I was. Icelandic leftist poisons Robert Spencer. We've talked about Robert Spencer before. He's a brilliant man when it comes to unraveling the secret society of Islam. A new phase in the left's campaign of demonizing those whom it hates. And this is actually written by Robert Spencer, which is why you'll see it in the first person. Last Thursday, I gave a lecture on the jihad threat at the Grand Hotel in Reykjavik, Iceland. Shortly thereafter, a young Icelandic leftist registered his disapproval of what I said by poisoning me. It happened after the event when my security chief, the organizers of the event, and Jihad Watch writer Christine Williams, who had also been invited to speak, went with me to a local restaurant to celebrate the success of the evening. At this crowded Reykjavik establishment, I was quickly recognized. A young Icelander called me by name, shook my hand, and said he was a big fan. Shortly after that, another citizen of that famously genteel and courteous land also called me by name, shook my hand, and said, F you. We took that marvelous Icelandic greeting as a cue to leave, but the damage had already been done. About 15 minutes later, when I got back to my hotel room, I began to feel numbness in my face, hands, and feet. I began trembling and vomiting. My heart was racing dangerously. I spent the night in a Reykjavik hospital. What had happened quickly became clear and was soon confirmed by a hospital test. One of these local Icelanders who had approached me, probably the one who said he was a big fan, as he was much closer to me than the FU guy, had dropped drugs into my drink. I wasn't and am not on any other medication, and so there wasn't any other explanation of how these things had gotten into my bloodstream. For several days thereafter, I was ill, but I did get to Reykjavik's police station and gave them a bigger case than they have seen in a good while. The police official with whom I spoke took immediate steps to identify and locate the principal suspects and obtain the restaurant's surveillance video. Iceland is a small country. Everyone knows everyone else. And so as it happened, I was quickly able to discover the identity, phone number, and Facebook page of the primary suspect, the young man who claimed he was a big fan. I don't intend to call him. Icelandic police will be contacting him soon enough, if they haven't done so already. However, I did look at his Facebook page, and as I expected, I saw nothing that might indicate that he really was a big fan of my work, or that he held any views out of the mainstream, which is courtesy of Iceland's political and media elites, dominated entirely by the left. The most likely scenario is that this young man, or whoever drugged me, heard that a notorious racist was coming to Reykjavik by chance, saw me in the restaurant, and decided to teach me a lesson with some of the illegal drugs that are as plentiful there as they are anywhere else. I should have seen it coming. After all, my visit had triggered a firestorm of abuse in the Icelandic press, all based on American leftist talking points. Every story about my visit had the same elements. The notice that the SPLC claims that I purvey hate speech, which is a subjective judgment used to shut down dissent from the establishment line, the fact that I am banned from Britain with no mention of the key detail that I was banned for saying that Islam has doctrines of violence, which is like being banned for saying water is wet, and for the crime of supporting Israel and the false claim that I incited the Norwegian mass murder Anders Breivik to kill. In reality, I'm no more responsible for Breivik's murders than the Beatles are for Charles Manson's. After the event, one article even featured a big photo of Breivik, but quoted nary a thing that I had said that evening. Not a single Icelandic media outlet that ran a story about my coming or about the event itself contacted me for comment, much less for rebuttal to the charges they made against me. One TV station did air an interview with me in which the interviewer refused to believe that I did not feel responsible for the Breivik murders and asked me about them again and again. After the event, articles in the Icelandic press included quotes from the 50 protesters, but none included even a single quotation or description of anything we had actually said. None quoted any of the 500 brave Icelanders who braved the hatred of the politically correct elites to come to the Grand Hotel to hear me and Ms. Williams, a staggeringly large number in a country of 300,000 people. It's clear. Jihad and Islamization are not subjects that Icelandic politicians and media opinion makers want Icelanders to discuss. All right, come on now. All over the West, as leftist students riot and physically menace conservative speakers and leftist spokesmen indulge in the most hysterical rhetoric to defame their foes, politicians cower in fear and decline to discuss these issues, only ensuring that the problems I identified when I spoke in Reykjavik will continue to grow in Iceland and elsewhere. As they were rising to power in Germany, the Nazis indoctrinated their young followers with the same message. Those who oppose us are evil. Those who brutalize them are doing a great thing. The left's demonization of its opponents today will lead to exactly the same thing it already has for me in beautiful Reykjavik. Tool up, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Cold War Radio with Hutch Bailey Jr. on We Are America Radio, your number one streaming source for political talk anywhere. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Cold War Radio. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Silver Star Medal to Michael McCarty, 1st Lieutenant Infantry, U.S. Army Reserve, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action while serving with Company C, 3rd Battalion, 153rd Infantry Regiment, 39th Brigade Combat Team in combat against enemy forces in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, on November 20th, 2004, near Adamaya, Iraq. First Lieutenant McCarty's platoon was patrolling in the Adamaya district of Baghdad when his platoon was attacked by a numerically superior enemy force. Facing rocket-propelled grenades, medium machine guns, and small arms fire, Lieutenant McCarty continually exposed himself in order to acquire targets and direct fire, at one point single-handedly charging and destroying an enemy machine gun. In all, his team stopped an enemy three-man machine gun team and a force of about 75 insurgents. Lieutenant McCarty's actions were responsible for saving American lives, destroying enemy forces, and preventing capture of an Iraqi police station. Lieutenant McCarty, job well done. God bless America.
Past 14 years, I've been working towards the creation of a Cold War museum to honor Cold War veterans and preserve Cold War history. We've finally found a physical home at the former Army Communications Base at Vint Hill, Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C. We are working with the Vint Hill Economic Development Authority, Amon's Design Studio, and other groups on the remodeling of the building that will house the museum. But now is the time I really need your help. Your financial support will allow us to properly archive and display the extensive collection of Cold War Museum artifacts we've collected over the last 14 years. Please consider a tax-deductible contribution. Your gift will help ensure future generations remember Cold War events and personalities that forever altered our understanding of national security, international relations, and personal sacrifice for one's country. Please visit us online at coldwar.org. Thank you.
Yellow and black and rectangular.
Rectangular, yes. And what else?
Well, Doctor, it has kind of wedge shapes inside.
Yellow, black, and with wedge shapes inside.
Oh, I see them everywhere. Everywhere. Do you hear me?
Yeah, there, Mrs. Edwards. Just lie back on the couch.
What does it mean? Am I losing my mind?
Mrs. Edwards, my professional diagnosis is quite simple.
Oh, thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
What you have been seeing everywhere you look are those yellow and black signs installed by Civil Defense.
Oh.
They're the yellow and black signs used to indicate a fallout shelter in buildings.
Yeah.
Every building that displays that yellow and black sign has an approved shelter, many stocked with supplies.
So you see these signs too, Dr. Black?
Why, sure, Mrs. Edwards.
Oh, well, I feel better already.
Speaker, Mrs. Milan's very own. That is, when our young son Daniel hasn't picked it up and carried it off to his room.
Oh, there you have it, Ray. Even a mere youngster can play it.
Jimmy, you can hardly miss getting those 7-inch records onto the big center spindle correctly. And what's there to do after that?
Nothing but press one button once and enjoy up to 50 minutes of music.
And what music, Jimmy? Such rich tone.
And there's the second great feature of the RCA Victor 45, quality. The third is its low cost. 45 automatic players begin at $12.95. And 45 records as low as 46 cents. Those 15 dance albums you mentioned, Ray, cost $12.45 less when purchased on 45. And that's only 50 cents short of the price of a completely automatic 45 attachment. With record savings like this, it's no wonder all America is swinging to 45.
Best swing I've ever seen, Jimmy.
None better, Ray. Friends, join the swing to 45 when you buy your next record.
And welcome back to Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen. 412-567-2449 if you'd like to join the program. Apparently there's more bad things going on at the UN than we even imagined. Apparently an agency at the UN is helping North Korean chemical weapons program. Support from outlaw regime is getting a banned nerve gas chemical from Front Page Magazine and Joe Klein. The UN has been serving as an enabler of North... You know, ever since the Korean War was over. Now, in the Korean War, the United Nations did have somewhat of a multinational force in Korea. I mean, not as robust as it should have been, but I mean, it was primarily the Americans and the Canadians, and then primarily just the Americans. We took 38,000 killed there in 3 years, and numerous taken prisoner. But now apparently there's a chemical named taboon, which has been on a list of materials banned from shipment to that country by the Security Council since 2006. Why only 2006? I have no idea. But the international patent application was filed on November 1st, 2015, and published December 15th, 2016. The international agency involved in this fiasco is the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, which apparently neglected to mention the patent application to the appropriate UN bodies involved in monitoring North Korea's weapons of mass destruction programs and compliance with the UN Security Council sanctions resolution. So, nobody's talking to each other at the UN, and now you're looking at the potential of, we already know they have delivery devices that can reach out pretty far. I mean, nerve agent, I mean, it's not a very effective, no chemical weapon is really very effective by itself. I mean, you have to have climatic conditions have to be right, concentrations of targets have to be correct, you know, the wind has to be going a certain way or not. But they can be devastating when all the conditions are met. And when you hear of nerve agent, just think of raid. Just think of raid for people, because that's what it is. It's not real sophisticated. It's attacks the central nervous system, and just like raid. If you spray a bug with raid and you watch what it does, that's what people do when they get hit with nerve agent. It's hideous. Not as hideous as some other chemical weapons like blister agent and things like that take you out slow. Nerve agent takes you out right now. And to even contemplate a country like North Korea getting, you know, I got to tell you, we're close. We're getting close to the point with technology the way it is, and with the internet set that you could get just about any type of plans or engineering information online. These rogue states, or these enemies of the United States, let me say that, are going to get these weapons soon. So it would behoove us to maybe, and I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but it would behoove us to maybe start lobbying our school districts and maybe our own kids to get up off of these smartphones and get outside and start exercising a little bit, because we're going to be challenged here in the not so distant future, in my opinion. And I know we have some good, strong kids out there, but we got a lot of marginal kids that lack direction, and, you know, they don't go outside anymore, it seems. At least the ones I know don't. You know, it reminds me of that commercial, "Hey, Grandma," on a telephone, calling in the house. "How about another one of those grape sodas?" You know, it's something that it could come back to bite us, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you think about it, you get into a war, especially if it's a ground war. In Korea, you better be able to climb some mountains. I remember the first road march I ever did in Korea, the first 12-mile road march, and my boots were about a half a size too big. And I'll tell you what, that last mile of that road march, I was on the hood of a Jeep because I had a blister the size of a 50-cent piece on my heel. And it's no joke. It was up hills, down hills, up hills, down hills. North Korean pamphlets scattered on the road. So it's something that we got to toughen these kids up a little bit in their minds as well. I mean, you heard the story of the Icelandic leftists, these kids think. They think they're doing the right thing. You know, they're taught. You heard John Lewis at a commencement speech. He told the kids, get in trouble. You know, get in good trouble. Like there's such a thing. Like people are so oppressed these days. These leftists are getting more violent. Be prepared for it. If you have to, be prepared to meet it with it. Meet it back with violence. I'm not trying to fire anybody up. I'm just saying, you know, the Republicans show you how to lay down. They're showing you how to just give up and give away the store. Because there is no store. It never was their store. They're just fronts for the Democrat store. We're finding that out more and more every day. But let's go from Iceland to Denmark. We have jihad in Denmark from the Gatestone Institute, Judith Bergman, Danish Minister of Justice Soren Pape, or Pape, hopes, I know Norway's out there cringing, hopes to solve the issue by prosecuting the imam. However, Danish politicians appear to miss the critical fact that there is clearly a thirsty audience for sermons like this. The sermon is a call to violence against Jews. As the Quran cannot be changed, it is crucial to make more broadly known what is in it, so at least people can see the facts confronting them to help them determine what choices they might care to make for their own future and that of their children's. In 2015, Omar El Hussein listened to the Imam Haj Saeed at the Hizb ut Tahrir linked Al Farouk Mosque in Copenhagen, decry interfaith dialogue as a malignant idea and explain that the right way, according to Muhammad, is to wage war on the Jews. The next day, El Hussein went out and murdered Dan Uzan, the volunteer Jewish guard of the Jewish community, as he was standing in front of the Copenhagen synagogue. El Hussein had also just murdered Finn Norgard, a film director, outside a meeting about freedom of speech. 2 years later, nothing has changed. A visiting imam from Lebanon, at the Al Farouk Mosque, Munhir Abdallah, is preaching to murder Jews. Soon there will be a caliphate which will instate the Sharia of Allah and revive the Sunnah of his prophet, which will wage jihad for the sake of Allah, which will unite the Islamic nation after it disintegrated, and which will liberate the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the Zionists, so that the words of the Prophet Muhammad will be fulfilled. Judgment Day will not come until the Muslims fight the Jews and kill them. The Jews will hide behind the rocks and the trees, but the rocks and the trees will say, O Muslim, O servant of Allah, there is a Jew behind me. Come and kill him. That passage right there, ladies and gentlemen, is what started me on my path to studying these savages. And I have to credit Glenn Beck when he was on headline news at CNN for running Arabic media that quoted that very verse in a cartoon that was shown to kids. I saw that and I knew there was something wrong. That's what started it all. The words of the prophet are from a well-known hadith number 6985. Far from hiding this incitement, the mosque posted the sermon delivered on March 31st on the YouTube page of Al Farouk Mosque on May 7th. The invaluable research organization Memory translated it. And that's what they do, ladies and gentlemen. Memory, if you go online, that's a good point of reference, because they take, like Glenn Beck did, they take all the things on the Arab media and they translate it into English so you can see what's going on. And the United States media refuses to cover any of this. It's just not going to happen. Can you imagine? We'll split from this a little bit. Basically, the rest of the article quotes from the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sunnah. So it's a good thing to study. But can you imagine in this country if we had an honest media? You wouldn't be able to have a Democrat Party, or it would be a far different organization, something more along the lines of John Kennedy, but, John Kennedy came around and he lasted how long? Those guys don't last too long. But it would be a completely different country if we had a media with some integrity. I would guess that one of the things, if we look at the country and we look at what's going wrong with it, and we look at the trajectory into the future and what we could do to get closer to the constitutional republic that we're supposed to be, and some of the things are, you almost have to go against the Constitution to save the Constitution. That sounds like George W. Bush. So let me not say that. Let me unsay that. But if we could use some trade regulations or something and break up these media conglomerates. I mean, right now you have 6 corporations dictating what a whole bunch of lazy people hear and watch. And when I say lazy, I don't mean that as a character flaw. I mean that in our technologically advanced state, digging for news is not something that people are wrapped up in. They're totally into instant gratification. And it's not to disparage anybody, but we have to find a way to reach these people, is my point. And when you hear the same thing across all the networks verbatim, I mean verbatim, if you listen to some of the compilations that Rush Limbaugh's put together, these people say the exact same words across network lines. And it takes the Democrats 2 or 3 days to say what they're supposed to say, but then you hear the Democrats saying it. And it's just not healthy, because we know if you have a media that will never talk about jihad, you've got a corrupt media that is in support of jihad. If you have a media that doesn't report about a verminous woman who sells the United States to Arab countries for cash for herself, who sells 20% of the United States uranium to Uranium One in Russia, and then says Russia stole her election, you've got a corrupt media. That's not a media. That is not a news organization when, as soon as the tides turned and Donald Trump is elected president, it does a complete about-face, and the press secretary sits in the press room, talks about 15 minutes of accomplishments and of things that are coming on in the future, and when it gets to the questions, they talk about the same thing every day about Russia. Now they're going to talk about Comey and this memorandum that I would drag Comey out. He'd be in a chair right now. He'd be in a chair and there'd be a light bulb on him, and we'd be finding out if this happened or not. And if it did, then we would bring it up, deal with it, and kill it. Because the president's going overseas, and it's much more important events that are going to occur there than this stupid memo. And I would ask Comey, if you're saying that he did this, why didn't you say anything? Why did you wait until the New York Times had to leak this? Then I'd go after my leakers, too. That'd be another thing. Leakers would be in prison. Leavenworth would have a special wing for people that are seditious, that are giving away secrets coming out of the Oval Office. Horrible. Now, I do have a good, feel-good story to end the program with this evening. This is from the Riverside Police Department Facebook page. Entire police department escorts daughter of fallen officer to the prom. By Catherine Rodriguez. An entire police department in Riverside, California, escorted the daughter of a fallen officer to her prom on Saturday. The Riverside Police Department escorted Rachel Jacobs, 17, to her high school prom in honor of her late father, Detective Doug Jacobs, Fox Los Angeles reported. Detective Doug Jacobs, Rachel's father, died in the line of duty when Rachel was a 6-month-old infant. Wow, that's awesome. They waited till she was 17. To Rachel's surprise, Detective Jacobs' colleagues showed up at her house with a full police escort, including an air unit, to give her and her date an incredible send-off. I bet that date was scared. The officers also gave her date a talking to before giving the couple the grand send-off. The police department's Aerial Support Division, also known as Air 1, captured the moments on camera with a flyover view of the occasion. Other police departments around the country have extended the same courtesy for other teenagers attending their proms. That's the first time I ever heard about that. I think that's pretty cool. In 2016, the Tarpon Springs Police Department in Palm Harbor, Florida, surprised the daughter of a fallen officer with a police escort to her prom. That same year, the Fort Kent Police Department in Maine escorted 2 special needs students to their prom as a courtesy to one of the students who served as an honorary police officer with the department by riding with officers in the patrol car. So that's a feel-good story. You got to have those every now and then, just to balance the dread that I bring every time I turn this microphone on. But, you know, when I first put that story up, I don't have time to read the entire story when I'm putting this show together every night. But when I looked at it, I figured that the cop was killed recently. I didn't realize it was 17 years ago. That's a here for that police department, man. The police that were in that operation, probably most of them never knew the detective. I mean, that's amazing. That's something that, God bless our cops, man. I mean, these guys, they went through hell for 8 years. And they're still going through it right now. I mean, at least they have the backing of the president. But back to that. Let's talk about that a little bit. You've got the president going on an overseas trip, and he's got a busy schedule. It's not like Obama. I mean, this guy's he's going to do work. He's going to see the Pope. He's going to see all kinds of people, the EU, and he's going with Secretary Mattis to talk to NATO. I mean, this is an important trip. He's going to see Abbas, Netanyahu. He's going to the Western Wall. So we're going to see how professional or unprofessional the media is. I think you're going to see more unprofessional than professional. I'd also like to remind you what I said at the beginning of the program, because it's going to take all of us. These Republicans, these cowardly Republicans that aren't coming out in support of this president. I'm going to tell you what, if they let him fail, I'm not voting Republican anymore. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. But I know I'm not supporting these people anymore. These people have no honor. They have no integrity. Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, where the hell are you? Where are all you Republicans? Jason Chaffetz, get out of the damn Congress already. Leave. Let somebody else replace you. You people make me sick. You're not supporting your leader. You're letting your leader on the battlefield defend for himself. When you're the experienced political whore, you should be out there helping him. You should be out there helping defend him. You people are making a big mistake. I told you last night. And I'm telling you again, it's clear you're on the other side. You want the guy to fail. Hell, if he got impeached, the Senate would probably convict him. John McCain would vote with the Democrats. So would Lindsey Graham. We're in a bad way right now. I'm telling you, you better figure this out, because you're not gonna stand if you think, and I know you do. I know you think everybody thinks like you, and that you just want to get away from this guy. This guy's your only hope. He's your only hope. If he fails, you're out. You'll lose the Senate and the House, and I hope you do. You know what I mean? I don't hope you do. I take that back. But that's what'll happen. And right now, really, I mean, you're worthless to me. You're not doing anything for the country. John Cornyn is down there talking about, well, we don't need to really have a wall, and he's bought and paid for. It's very clear. Flake, I mean, the rest of you, you've been found out. It's clear you're part of the big club. Tom Donahue writes your checks. We know that. Between him and Saudi Arabia, we got your number. And it's an ugly number. You better fall in line. And to Donald Trump, it's decisive time, man. There's no more. You're running out of time when it comes to getting your inner security together. These leaks have got to stop. If you've got inner fighting inside your inner circle, you better figure it out. Because the vultures are swarming and the Republicans are incompetent. They're not competent enough to come back with a message and change the narrative, or they're in cahoots with the leftists. One or the other, you've got to figure it out and you've got to fight it. You've got tens of millions of people behind you, Mr. President, that will stand up and fight with you, but you've got to start knocking off these targets that are inside the wire. If you don't knock these targets out, they're going to knock you out. You got to make it happen. It's time. It's time to take the gloves off, get your family, and put them off to the side. Love them to death, but put them off to the side. Get them out of the spotlight, get some professional fighters in there, and let's do this. That's all I can say. You got to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening tonight live, and to all you that listen to the podcast. I hope we get some more callers coming in here in the next couple of episodes, but if not, we'll react accordingly. I'm trying not to get rid of this thing yet, but that's like 3 shows in a row, so that's okay. If we don't need to call it, I can talk, no problem. But anyway, I will be on the Wayne Dupree program coming up next, and we'll be back on Thursday, hopefully with Stacey Rush on Cold War Radio. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Berg's Eye View on Twitter. Thanks for listening, and thanks for letting me into your life for 1 hour. God bless.